Pitt football closed out the home portion of its 2024 schedule with a loss to the Clemson Tigers, and now that's 3 in a row for the Panthers, and they'll look to end that streak when they go to Louisville to take on the Cardinals this Saturday for a 4 o'clock kick. We'll talk all about the Clemson game, the upcoming Louisville matchup, along with some recruiting news as well on the newest edition of the Pittsburgh Sports Now Football Pulse. Welcome in. I'm Nathan Breisinger alongside Karl Ludwig, the Pittsburgh Sports Now Pitt football beat writers. And starting with the Clemson loss, Pitt falls for the third straight week, 24-20 to a now ranked number 17 Clemson in the college football playoff rankings. Going in, knew it was going to be a tough game, but Pitt held its fair share for the most part, other than defensively 2 bad coverages on post routes in the first half, and then the big 50-yard Cade Klubnik run that just, ripped the hearts out of the Pitt Panthers that day and the fans that were there, 55,000 plus that were at Acrisure Stadium on Saturday. But a lot of it, again, had to do with the offensive inconsistencies. Karl, what were just your initial takeaways from this loss for Pitt?
Yeah, I think you mentioned a little bit about just Pitt was right there. Huge chance to kind of take the game and pull off a huge upset and continue that run of success against Dabo Swinney. And ultimately, too many mistakes, too many unforced errors, too many just plays that you can't have happen in game 10 of your season. And it bit Pitt in the behind a bit. It's a shame that the Cade Klubnik 50-yard touchdown run had to be on the defense. They played a great game all throughout. Some things here and there you want to clean up a little bit, but that was a winning performance by the defense, even with the 50-yard run, and the offense just could not get enough consistency throughout the game. We're talking about Cade. We're talking about Cade Bell and the red zone offense just having no sort of synergy, no cohesion, back to back penalties, timeouts after timeouts, and delayed games after timeouts. It was a mess. And Pitt was still right there with a chance to win the game twice. There was a field goal drive to take the lead there, a touchdown drive to take the lead there. Clemson comes back, takes the lead. Pitt has another chance to get down there and take the lead again. It just fell a little short. Clock management wasn't fantastic, as I'm sure Pitt fans have noticed over the years. But Pitt was right there. It was there for the taking, and they held on to it for a little bit. They had the game in their hands for a minute and a half there, but Clemson, as good teams do, found a way to win. Pitt fell just short, and it's another what if in this season of what ifs. No Eli Holstein, obviously it hurts a little bit. Nate was an 8-year-old battled there. He was hit a lot, hit often, just came up short. And I think Pitt will really regret those errors and miscommunications and all that led to the loss here.
Now let's focus in a little bit on the defensive performance. We talked about, they played really well, probably one of its best defensive performances all season. And that's against a Clemson team that can score every which way on you. And especially they shut down running back Phil Maffa, very similarly to the way they did against Marion Hampton in the second half of the North Carolina game. And this Clemson team, before Klubnik ripped off that 50-yard, basically game-winning touchdown run, they were held to 8 yards on 26 carries, 0.3 yards per carry up to that point. Pitt's defense was playing phenomenally and had 5 sacks on Klubnik as well. Now, we talked about the pass defense was a little susceptible in the first half. 12 plays of 10 or more passing yards occurred in the first half. 2 of those, again, on the post routes to Antonio Williams. That went for 28 yards and 14 yards for the touchdown. But the secondary settled in, this defense settled in, and really played, for the most part, lights out. And it just happened so that all of that was for naught and was ruined just out of one play. And a perfectly designed play call. Cade Klubnik, quarterback draw, didn't see it really all game. We saw him run a couple times, but nothing like that. And it was drawn up at the perfect time, and he just beat the entire Pitt defense one-on-one with Donovan McMillan right past the line. And then you could see some of the Pitt defensive players slowed down, thinking that Donovan might have had him there. But you can't quit on a play like that, and it just happened to burn you. So, Pitt with one of its better defensive performances all year.
Yeah, it's hard to kind of blame Donovan on that. He had a bad angle. It happens. There are 10 more guys out there who didn't make the play either. Just a blown play defensively, and it came at the worst time in the game, and that's unfortunate. But the defense is still good enough to win you games and to give you a chance in every game you're going to play this season, with maybe the exception of SMU. But Kyle Lewis might be the best defensive player in the conference. He's a surefire All American, All ACC player. The linebacking core flying around. I think we're seeing better play, and I know there is some bigger plays through the air that's going to happen against this kind of defense, this Pat Narduzzi scheme. But I think we're seeing the CBs and the safeties kind of lock in a bit. They'll give up some yards to the air, but usually it's the bend don't break mentality where they'll force a field goal or they'll force a turnover. And Pitt won time of possession. They won the turnover battle. They had the lead late, 2 minutes left in the game, and that's a big credit to the defense for really locking in and shutting down a high powered Phil off a rushing attack. And Cade had some plays through the air, but it wasn't like he was winning the game by himself or anything. And it's another game where the defense is it's I don't want to say frustrated by the offensive output, but if the defense continues to play as it is, the offense at some point really has to start scoring touchdowns. They have to finish these red zone drives. They have to run the ball a bit more. I mean, the offensive line wasn't great for the Pitt Panthers here, but we're 10 games into the season, 2 games left. It is what it is now. You have to kind of just make the best of it, and I think the Pitt defense is making the best of it right now, and kind of has all season when it matters.
And Pitt's run defense allowing 104.6 yards per game. That's 14th best in the country. So they continue to rise in that category, in that department of their game. But again, the offense sort of once again let them out to dry. And I don't think you feel as bad about this loss if you don't lose the week prior to Virginia, because you lose by 4 points in a heartbreaker to Clemson. Okay, I mean that's a really good program. They're still fighting for their lives in the ACC right now. But I mean, with these 3 straight losses, it's just been a tough go as of late this past month since November. And you're supposed to play your best football in November, and it has not happened for this Pitt football team. And the most surprising and egregious part of it all has been the procedural penalties. And again, Desmond Reed got Pitt down to the 2-yard line with a diving attempt at the goal line. And then from there, it was just catastrophic. I mean, I don't even know. There's so many different ways you can describe it, and they're not good. And you look at that sequence there, you have a 2-yard shovel pass to Bartholomew, which seemed like it was just out of sorts to begin with. Then you go timeout because the offense takes a while to line up. Then you go legal formation, delay of game, then false start, and then you're looking at a 3rd and goal from the 16. That just shouldn't happen in Pitt's offense. And we saw it a couple more times the remainder of the game where they just were out of sorts, just not ready to get lined up. And I don't know if that's a Nate Yarnell issue since he was starting for the first time, but he's played in this offense a couple times already. Don't know if it's the offensive line personnel getting mixed and matched in there. We saw Jackson Brown making his first career start. So there's a lot to look at. You probably can, spread the blame around a little bit, but I mean, it does fall a lot on Cade Bell because this is his offense and it just wasn't ready to go on and crunch time and one of the most important parts of this game.
Yeah, and it wasn't the best called game from Cade Bell. Obviously, execution wasn't perfect either. I wouldn't say it was all Cade Bell. I wouldn't say it was all the players. Maybe 60-40. But Nate battled. I wouldn't say he was fantastic. He isn't as mobile as Eli, and that was pretty apparent as he kind of stood in the pocket and maybe took some hits he shouldn't have. Obviously, he got hit a lot. Wasn't all his fault, but if he can't move around and extend plays like that, like a Cade Bell offense demands, and he's going to have some limitations. I'm not sure how much of the playbook was open to him. I know he got first team reps this last week, but before that, it was mostly Eli. I think maybe the most frustrating part with Cade is kind of just his personnel usage and the way he uses some of his players and the routes designed for certain wideouts. And I don't want to say there's no talent here because we've seen a talented offense, but there's a lot of drops, there's a lot of procedural penalties, and it's frustrating for the offense because we've seen it work, we've seen success, and I'm not sure if it's Cade failing to adjust to what defenses give 4 weeks into that now. I mean, it's been 4 weeks where the defense is playing largely the same scheme against you. I know you have Nate Yarnell in, so it's a little different, but there's been no really adjustments. Um, there's been a severe kind of drop in play level from the receivers, from the quarterback. Um, the offensive line is a disaster. You're still looking for five guys who can play right now. It's just been it's hard. Like you said, it's hard to point to one area and say that's why it's failing. I know Pat Narduzzi likes to mention that it's 11 guys in the field at one time. I don't want to like do that kind of thing here, but there's definitely a lot of moving pieces here that's just it's not working. Um, and it's year one of the offense. I don't think anyone thought it'd be a radical success in year one. Maybe we were kind of given a little fool's gold early on, but I still think the concept is here. Um, I think Cade Bell knows what he's doing. I don't think he's over his head or anything. I think he's still kind of adapting to Power Five football, Power Four football. Um, but just right now, for whatever reason, the offense is in a serious funk, and um, it's up to Cade Bell to put his players in position to make those plays. Now it's a bunch of college kids out here. He's the boss. He's the adult here. He has to put his guys in position, and right now he's not really doing so. So big chance against Louisville. We're not 100% sure who's playing quarterback yet. If it's Eli, if it's Nate. I think you want to hope that it's Eli just because he is the future, and you want to get him rolling and kind of build some confidence. But if he can go easy throws, give him the easy chances. Kind of open up a deeper passing attack, open up more opportunities for Desmond Reed, who has been a superstar all season, and you just got to finish strong here. That's 2 games left. You played 10 games. This is the offense is the offense. There's no changing it now. So kind of just play through it, finish strong, and try and knock off a good Louisville team on the road.
It's funny though, Carl, because I was sitting through the first half of that game against Clemson, and I started to get a little bit more confident about the offense from what we had seen the previous 2 weeks, because it was just not good against Virginia and not good against SMU. And even with Yarnell in there, I mean, you look at the touchdown drive early in the game, 5 plays, 70 yards, that was capped by the Daniel Carter two-yard touchdown run. And then from there, I mean, in the second half, it was kind of just even though they only scored 7 points in the first half, still was confident. But then you go in the second half, and from there, it was just sort of flipped. I mean, they just could not get anything right when it mattered. And again, just there's a lot of areas to blame it. You can point some blame on, and again, personnel, big thing. And as you mentioned, Carl, still up in the air, the quarterback decision. Eli Holstein's cleared. We'll see if it's Holstein or Yarnell at Louisville for the 4 o'clock kick. Now, what we do know is Daniel Carter is done for the year. Sincere Lee is also done for the year at wide receiver, and Jordan Bass at linebacker is done as well for the year. So you'll see Rasheem Biles and Braylon Lovely sort of fill in when need be behind Kyle Lewis at the star linebacker position. Also, Zion Fowler L comes on to the 2 deep depth chart for Pitt at receiver, since CJ Lee is done for the year. And at running back, Narduzzi mentioned that obviously behind Des Reed, you're probably looking at Derek Davis. He said, watch out for Rodney Hammond. We'll see. There was talk about considering trying to redshirt him with the amount of games he's played so far in this season. And then beyond that, Joel's Goff, a true freshman kid to look for, potentially could get some touches. He's been pretty much hurt for most of the season, but has been available the last couple of games, but they haven't used him. So we'll see what they go here. I mean, you have 2 games left to try to, get a couple wins here. But before we get into the Louisville game, take a little bit of a break from the on-field play and talk a little bit about the recruiting aspect. We were less than 2 weeks away from National Signing Day for the class of 2025, and Pitt got hit with some tough news the other day as their top prospect in the class, Elijah Dotson, flipped from Pitt to Michigan. I mean, seemed like the writing was on the wall for the last couple of weeks. There was a huge push to get him and the number 1 prospect in the class, Bryce Underwood, the quarterback from Belleville High School as well. And he also did flip from LSU to Michigan. For a while, Underwood saying that wasn't going to happen. I'm not taking the money. There was a big deal in place through their NIL. Big part of it, Barstool's Dave Portnoy, I guess, was pumping in some money there as well. But they get Underwood and they get Pitt's Dotson, who Pitt was his first offer, had a really long-standing, really strong relationship with Archie Collins, Detroit area guy. So this one, You could say it's a big loss, but Carl, you wrote about it the other day that it's not the end of the world though for this recruiting class.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously the goal is to keep your top recruits. You don't want to lose your top rated recruit, but um, if you lose a Detroit kid to Michigan, who plays defensive back and has all this, I mean, you mentioned with Underwood with all the money, um, it's not a surprise. It's not like Pitt did anything wrong here. Archie Collins and the staff did a great job recruiting him. He did pick Pitt initially over Michigan. Um, Nothing's changed there. Pitt recruited him as a cornerback. He wants to be a cornerback. Pitt gave him the chance to do so. Gave him a chance for early playing time. Um, and Michigan came in with a stronger offer, I guess you could say, and the local kid chose to stay home and play for the Wolverines. So it's not the end of the world. It's not ideal. You prefer to have him than to not have him, but it's which what happens. It's hard to say anything else other than that it's a tough break, but you move on. You still have four defensive backs in the class. Two of them are 4 stars, and Cole Woodson and Mason Alexander. You have two really good athletes at with Sean Lee Jr. and um, Josh Gurrier. So it's a tough loss. I think everyone knows why Pitt lost him to Michigan. And you still have four talented guys who will come in and make a difference in the class. So it's kind of just you lost one. Dang, that's tough. Moving on, we have signing day in a few weeks here. We have a good class. It's gonna be okay.
Pitt sitting with 22 verbal commits right now in the class. Again, just under 2 weeks. An early signing day. Pat Narduzzi had some choice words on that in his presser on Thursday about it. That's coming up on December 4th. So the week after the season is over, the regular season is over for Pitt, and doesn't really give any time for the coaching staff to do any in-home visits before these kids sign. But 22 kids in the class, and I've been told that most likely all these guys sign for Pitt on signing day. So, but also just to touch on real quick one more time on Michigan, talk about Underwood and Dotson committing, but also there's been a push and some rumors floating and a prediction now logged that Central Catholic linebacker, so a Whipple kid, has been predicted to flip from Duke, where he's been committed since June, over to Michigan. So Michigan's really making a push here with a lot of players pushing to flip. They have currently 19 kids committed in their class, so that's something to watch out for if Gompers flips over to the Michigan Wolverines. But this past weekend against Clemson was a big recruiting weekend for Pitt as well. For game day visits, had a lot of kids on the sidelines, a couple of big recruits, a couple of 4 stars, but none bigger than a 5 star. I don't know when the last time you can really say they've had a 5 star on campus like that for a game day visit. Defensive end Javion Hilson, the number one weak side D end, according to Rivals.com. The 16th ranked player in the class was there for an official visit just a couple weeks after he was at an official visit at Syracuse. Texas is considered the front runner in his recruitment right now, and it comes just a couple months after he decommitted from Florida State. So this is an interesting, scenario going on with Hilson. I mean, Pitt, we'll see what happens here, and I think it really is a testament to see what type of closing power Tim Doust has, the new D line coach, because we know what Charlie Partridge was able to do and land some big time defensive lineman recruits. But we'll see what Doust can do here. Carl, any input on the Hilson situation?
Yeah, I mean, obviously he's a massive recruit. I think he's top 20 in the class, like you mentioned, number 1 week side D end. He's a big, strong kid, pursued by every major college in the country. I think he has like 35, 40 offers. He was committed to Florida State. Texas and Florida are kind of the top two right now going for him. It sounds like, with Syracuse also in the wings here. But I mean, with the shortened winter kind of official visit window now, it makes all the sense in the world to bring in a 5 star who seems to be interested and kind of show him, roll out the red carpet, show him around, show him that the Pitt defense can generate all kinds of pressure on the D end. This defense is built to generate pressure from the D ends. You'd walk into a great situation as the first 5 star in over 10 years now, since 2013. So I don't know if it's going to result in a commitment. I know Pitt's working NIL obviously for him. as they do with most of the recruits now, but especially for someone like him, I obviously probably can't do as much as someone like a Texas or a Florida. Um, but it's worth a shot. I mean, anytime you can bring in a 5-star recruit and show him around and kind of publicize that he's there with you, you do it. And he posted about it. He posted with Pat Narduzzi. Pat Narduzzi retweets it. Kids see it. Oh, 5-star here at Pitt. He has a good experience. He said as much after the fact to various outlets. So I'm not sure where it goes from here. It was a very, very quick turn with him kind of showing up and having the official visit, which I didn't think he's having an official visit. Um, Pitt's obviously in the running now, which is awesome. You want to have that kind of, you want to have those bigger guys interested, but I mean, we'll see how it goes. He's visiting other schools, big time schools like Texas now, and we'll see where it goes from now. Not a bad thing to have him on campus. I don't think you're wasting your time if people might be thinking that, but I wouldn't I wouldn't project him to sign with Pitt right now, but you never know. And when the door is open, crazier things have happened.
And he's expected to visit Florida, according to Rivals, this coming weekend for another official visit, and closes out the season on November 30th at Texas A&M. So a couple more big visits for Javion Hilson. So recruitment to keep an eye on in these last 2 weeks before the early signing period to see where he may commit, where he may end up, and see what type of push Pitt puts on here for that type of recruit. But Pitt's focused right now on their on-field play. They have Louisville 6-4 coming up. They most recently fell to Stanford and also in a heartbreaker, 38-35. They were leading 35-21 with under 10 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and they end up losing on the road. So they're coming back home, looking to get back on the right track on senior day. I mean, what's your initial thoughts on this matchup, Karl?
Yes, I mean, strong offense. You have a 7th-year guy in Tyler Shough. He was the Justin Herbert successor at Oregon way back in the day. He's been in Texas Tech for a few years. Last year now here in Louisville, and he's playing well. He's 25 years old. Um, he's experienced. He's a big, strong arm. Um, he's a talented kid, and he has a very talented receiver in Ja'Cory Brooks, who's one of the top receivers in the ACC. He has a very talented running back and freshman, Isaac Brown, very versatile, can play out of the backfield, can hand it off to him, can flex him out wide or in the slot. It's a good offense, big offensive line. The defense has been, as you mentioned, they've been a little rattled recently. Um, Not the strongest unit. Maybe susceptible to some aerial attacks, some ground and some running up the middle, open up the offense, have Eli or Nate kind of pass the ball around. But it's not as though Louisville is. This isn't Louisville from last year. They're not an ACC contender. They're 6-4. It's a chance. I mean, it's always tough to play on the road, but this is a game that Pitt should definitely be into. It's a Louisville team that beat Clemson. They ran the ball well against Clemson. They burned some clock. I'm not sure if Pitt can do that. We haven't seen a really sustained rushing effort, but if Pitt can hit enough home run balls against Louisville and play strong defense against this veteran offense, and of course they have a chance to stay in here and pull off a win.
I think their record's a little deceiving too. They're 6-4. They do have the win at Clemson, but their losses, other than Stanford, Notre Dame, SMU, and Miami. That's three top 15 teams right there. So they've played some really tough opponents. It's just been, an unfortunate schedule they've had set up for them against some of these tougher teams. But Pitt, I mean, we saw what happened last year at home. Pitt was able to take care of them. A Louisville team that was ranked at the time that went to the ACC championship last year. So this is a game that's big for Pitt to get back on track. But Isaac Brown's questionable running back. You look at that. Duke Watson, a true freshman against Stanford, ran for 117 yards and 3 touchdowns. So that's a running back I have to keep an eye on. But again, we've talked about the way Pitt's been able to shut down the running game of the opposition. So you have to look at Chuck, who completes 63.6% of his passes, 21 touchdowns, just 6 interceptions. Did have an early turnover against Stanford as well. And this Cardinals offense ranks third in the ACC in terms of yards per game, 447.8 in that category. Also third in passing as well in the ACC. So Louisville is favored by a touchdown, according to FanDuel, 7.5 favorite in this matchup. Karl, what do you think Pitt needs to really do in order to come away with a win on the road here?
I mean, I think the game plan against Clemson was pretty good. You play good defense. You play well enough on defense to limit them offensively. You force some turnovers. You give the ball back to the offense, and then the offense just has to finish in the red zone, score some touchdowns. I mean, you have Ben Saul, who's one of the best kickers in football. You have to get in the end zone. You have to finish on. You have to move some drives on third down, and you have to finish in the red zone. If you can score a few touchdowns, you can get Eli or Nate's confidence up a little bit and have them make those easy throws early to open up some stuff downfield and give Desmond Reed some chance to make plays in the open field. I think there's a really good chance to stay in the game here, but just if you come out here and you start off 0-5 on third down and um, you have the procedural penalties and mistakes in the red zone and back yourself into longer field goals, and it's not a recipe for success ever. Um, this isn't the best Louisville defense. It won't be as threatening as the Clemson defense, but it's still an ACC team with a decent defense. And if Pitt can't move the ball on third down and they can't stay on the field, and they give the ball back to defense in short fields and short turnarounds, and I'm not a big fan of the odds there. So just find ways to stay positive on first and second down. Like Kid Bell has mentioned all season, hasn't been as good in execution of that, but just shorter third downs, convert those third downs, and when you get red zone chances, you have to put some points on the board. And you hope touchdowns, but just you got to score points to win games anymore. So we'll see
Yeah,
how it goes.
we've seen a couple misses recently from Ben Saul, so got to get all the points you can get. Pitt, again, they're 7.5 point dogs in this game. Karl, what's your final score prediction for this one?
It's tough. I'm gonna say Pitt hangs in there. I think whoever the quarterback will do a decent job of running the offense, maybe bounce back a little bit. But I think Louisville is just good enough at home to pull out a 27-23 win at LNN Federal Credit Union Stadium. So Pitt hangs in there, just can't quite pull it through once again.
I think there's a lot of pride on the line in this game. I mean, you go from 7-0 to 7-4 into arguably a game that you absolutely must win and should win in Boston College for the final game of the year. And this is a game that I think is right up Pitt's alley to win. So I think the Panthers do come out on top here, 27-23. They've seen how vulnerable Louisville can be in the Stanford game. Stanford was able to do it. I think Pitt can come in to town and beat them as well. So I'm going Pitt in this one, 27-23. Like I said, I think whoever's in that quarterback gets the offense a little bit more on track. And I think there's just got to be a week that they clean a little bit of everything up. And I think it's got to be this week. I think the penalties are down just a little bit, and they do just enough to win this game. And the defense holds strong once again. So that's my prediction. Karl, you have Louisville winning this game. I have Pitt 27-23. We'll see where that ends up at the end of Saturday. Well, that'll do it for us on this edition of the Pittsburgh Sports Now Football Pulse. Be sure to check out all our content over at pittsburghsportsnow.com throughout Saturday in the Louisville game, as well as leading up to National Signing Day. A lot of content going to be coming up as well about the Pitt 2025 class. So, for Karl Ludwig, I'm Nathan Breisinger. We appreciate you tuning in to this edition of the Pittsburgh Sports Now Football Pulse.